for the final session. We've got Adam Whitehead, who's from the Dame Kelly Holmes Trust, and has just been sharing a really cool story about the fact he started as an athlete and has moved right through the organisation, much like myself, minus the athlete part, great at sport, but I can really sort of connect with that, and you know, I'm sure we've all got examples where people within our user groups or people that have volunteered for our organisations have suddenly become involved in the organisation, potentially getting to senior positions, and that's great because we've got a great empathy with what's going on and what our customers are feeling and thinking about. So anyway, Adam's going to be talking to us about sort of stimulating behaviour change, particularly around how to reach young people. So most likely building quite a lot on what Jane has already touched on today, and I'm delighted to hear more about it. So over to you.
Well, don't get a round of applause. What's going on? You can tell everyone's feeling really energised, can't they? The graveyard shift for the final three of us. Hopefully no one falls asleep now the lights have gone dim. So I've been asked to talk a little bit about, I guess, what we've learned over the last 10 years delivering to really hard to reach young people, and really looking at our long-term intervention and taking a holistic approach to each individual that we work with. So they're the bits that I'm going to share with you. For those people that don't know who we are or what we do now, before, 3 or 4 years ago, we were a pre-employability programme, trying to get young people into jobs or into positive destinations, whether that was training or education. And what we do now, we've done some research in the last couple of years. Actually, the bit that we do really, really well is that we are able to positively affect young people's attitudes. So we're an attitude change programme, organisation that works with former Olympic athletes, Paralympic athletes, world-class athletes. They get retrained to work with some really hard-to-reach young people. The types of young people we work with are typically long-term unemployed, either in the care system or a care leaver. Some of our programmes have worked with women that have been sexually trafficked. So we are talking about the hardest to reach. We do a great programme with the homeless charity Centrepoint. And the key thing for us is that we know athletes have got some great attitudes that they've learnt from sport. And we're not saying that every young person doesn't have these attitudes, but by working with an athlete that has got it in their DNA, that is part of them, that they live and breathe it every single day, we know that they can accelerate those attitudes in those young people far quicker than somebody that hasn't had that background. So what do we do? What is positive life, I guess? We took the Young Foundation's definition of positive life, and you can see that in the bottom 4 boxes there. So they say that someone that is leading a positive life is being healthy, they're achieving in education, they're involved in meaningful activities, and they've got career success. For us, we talk about our final outcomes being Steve, which sounds pretty strange. But we take sport and physical activity, training and education, so the difference there is education formal, training informal. Volunteering, we think, aligns to meaningful activities, and employment. When we first started saying that we were trying to get young people into Steve, it didn't go down so well. But now we talk about they are our final outcomes. We do say the research that we've done around our programmes, we've been delivering this for 10 years now, and I think we always knew that it was a magic programme, and we always knew we were getting great results, but we didn't necessarily know what it was. So the research that we conducted actually asked the people that are on the programme, what is it about this? What are the things that you are improving? When is it happening on that journey? And how that helps us really help plan our programmes and shape our programmes and reacting to the participants that are on that. So the 5 attitudes that we've identified, you can see on there, I won't read them out. So we put them through lots of different activities to learn about themselves. Now, when you think about some of the guys that we're working with, they're living really chaotic lives, high complex needs. And I think how we've got success with people becoming more physically active is not by just isolating being physically active or taking part in sports. It's thinking about them as a whole person. You know, if you strip it back to, you know, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, how is a homeless person, how is someone that's unemployed, that can't pay their bills, going to be motivated or prioritised taking part in physical activity? So for us, it's about looking at that person, seeing what's going on in their lives, and thinking about, okay, well, we need to contribute to all of those sections in order for you to be open to take part in physical activity. I was watching that TV programme, the same one that Mike was watching last night, How to Live Younger. Did anyone else watch that? Yeah, a few do. We all want to be a little bit younger, don't we? Yeah. And it said on there, it takes 66 days to change a behaviour and to become a habit. And I thought, oh, I'll have that for tomorrow. That sounds pretty good. But 66 days to change a habit with somebody that have got all of those other elements sorted in their lives, you can kind of understand. But for somebody that hasn't got all of those elements sorted in their lives, it becomes very, very difficult for them to change a habit of not taking part in physical activity or not prioritising that. What we've got at the Trust is we've got a theory of change. So we've looked at our programmes, what are the key elements of the programmes that make it a success, what are the things that we must have as part of every single programme. And it is a behavioural change model. I'm not expecting everyone to read every piece of this slide, but our young people work through this from left to right. So we've got things in there that are, we have to make some assumptions, we have to make some things that are essential parts of the programme. But what I wanted to really focus on, we've got this line on the right-hand side, and it's the line of accountability. So it's the bit that we can claim that we do, because we know that because we've conducted the research. And everything that sits on the left-hand side of that line, we can say absolutely our programme does, because we know it, because we've got the indicators, we've got the evidence. So you can see on there, I've got a little pointer, haven't I? Never went to university, but this is good. Look at this. So we know that our attitudes build character in young people, and we know through our transformational programmes that are anything from 9 months to 16 months in length, we know that these 5 attitudes are accelerated and improved. Because of that, we know that they're much more likely to get into Steve. So this for us is a positive life. So they could go into sport, they could go into training, education, volunteering, or employment. Quite often, for our young people, it goes in that order. Actually, the physical activity bit is actually the bit that they get from the programme. All the way through any of our programmes, physical activity isn't the focus, but it's threads all the way through the programme. And it's almost, activity by stealth in many ways. And what we want to change is their behaviour long term. Now, we've been going 10 years, so we've got some evidence that it's changed people's behaviour. That were on programmes 5, 6 years ago. For every young person that graduated our programme last year, when they came onto the programme, 30% of them were taking part in some sort of activity. And we've looked at that 12 months after the programme finishing, and 70% of those young people are now engaged in physical activity. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how we do that in a minute. Now, if you thought getting young people into Steve sounded a bit dodgy, this is the first time we've gone public with this, and this is Pamela. So now, to get to Steve, you have to go through Pamela. Okay? Sounds really bad, but hopefully it'll make sense. There's no PC or safeguarding in here, is there? No. Physical activity, like I said, is threaded all the way through the programme. So we want young people to experience physical activity and reflect on how that makes them feel, affect on some of the other benefits associated with physical activity. But without the amala, the bit that sits underneath it, we don't really believe that they're going to get to that stage. So we've got to get them to be more effective. We've got to put them through situations that gets an emotional response from them, so they can reflect on their behaviour, how they work with other people, their place in the world. We know through our programmes mental health is improved. We know that people going through a process over a long period of time, their social capital, their emotional intelligence are all improved as part of that. And we give them the opportunity to learn both formally and informally. And if we get all of those things right, we know those 5 attitudes are changed. And if they change those attitudes, they become far more open to taking part in sport or physical activity. So to get to Steve, you've got to go through Pamela. I think I've already mentioned it. One of the ways we do that right at the start of a programme is we do activity by stealth. One of the last programmes I worked on as an athlete mentor 5 years ago was in Luton Sixth Form College. And we turned up at Luton Sixth Form College. We had 60 pupils. They'd been selected because they were more than 10% below the average for the year. So they've been selected onto our programme because of that. We stood in the giant hall. As anyone's been to Luton Sixth Form College, they know it's a huge hall. We stood in a big circle. The group was mainly made up of, a large majority was Muslim boys and Muslim girls. And we had straight away, we asked them to do a simple activity of putting a finger in the palm of the person's hand next to you. It's a little reaction game to kick things off. Nobody could touch the person next to them. The boys didn't want to touch the other boys. The girls definitely didn't want to touch the boys. And the girls were just giggling because this was all very strange and funny. They came into that saying, sport is not for me. Why are we in the sports hall? I do not want to. 5 minutes? You're joking, aren't you? You'll have to wrestle me off this stage. Don't take that out my 5 minutes. I've gone red. The girls came in saying, we hate sport, we're not doing it. By the afternoon, we had the same group running backwards and forward. They were doing an activity, it was a team building activity, it was based around communication. They're running backwards and forwards. The girls are sweating, the boys are carrying the girls on the back. It was just fantastic. But we didn't say, this is sport, this is activity, this is training. This was just about them doing something else, and it was increasing their activity levels by stealth. The following day, we sat down to do some debates and to talk about social issues. Nobody wanted to talk about social issues. Everybody wanted to run around the sports hall. So, you can change people's perception of activity quickly by doing it without them even knowing. This is, for me, the big thing that we try and do, and I think we're all on the same page from the conversations that I've had today, is around motivation. So, taking Sport England's insights research, looking at what motivates people to take part in sport. I swam every day, bar Sundays, for 15 years. I did 6 hours of training a day for 15 years. And when I finished in 2006, did I want to take part in sport? No. The only reason I took part in sport when I swam was because I was competitive and I really wanted to win. That was the only reason I took part in sport. When that got took away, I had no reason to play sport again. 3 years later, and about 15k heavier, I realised actually my motivation to take part in activity and sport now is so I can fit into a t-shirt, so I don't get out of breath running up the stairs, so I can be a little bit healthier. Telling me now, come along to this session, sport is going to be really fun, is not going to get me there. Telling me that it's going to be really competitive is not going to get me there. Today I've eaten 3 croissants when I arrived. I had 2 plates of dinner. I tried them both, different stations, so they didn't know that I'd been back. Then I had a bowl of fruit because I was feeling guilty about all of that. And then I saw the cheesecake. So I had a slice of cheesecake. The only reason I'm going to do activity tonight is because I feel guilty. Okay, so we've got to understand people's motivations, and when we're working with a group, we think about that. 3 minutes, it's going up. We think and it's already been said today, you know, I think the key for us in making it sustainable, about making it impactful in the community, is working with people from that community. Sporty people are always going to do sport, we've heard that already. Me turning up in a GB tracksuit, swinging a medal around my head, is not going to it's going to be a barrier for a lot of people. We launched a programme called Community Champions this year that was funded by Sport England, and that's about taking our graduates from our programmes, training them as leaders. And every single programme we do has a social action element to it, but our definition of social action is through physical activity. So these guys are then thinking about a social issue in their community and putting on a physical activity to combat that social issue, whereas cohesion or whatever it might be. Now those people might come along because they like the idea of the activity, but a lot of them will come along because they might feel isolated in their community, or they want to feel more connected to a different age group or a different group of people. So for this links back to people's motivation to take part in sports. I'm sure Mike Doper stole my slide deck this morning, because we've already seen this already. For us, like I said, it's a long-term approach. This conveyor belt is, we need to make these people active, let's put on a 6-week programme, and all of their issues will be solved. Doesn't work for us. 1 minute. I know. Most of our guys fit into one of those first 3 categories at the start of the programme. It takes us at least 12 months to get people getting started and activated. How we do it, at the very, very start, the young person's at the top, the athlete is playing a huge part in their motivation and keeping them going. We call this the invisible mentor. So at the start, the athlete's having a huge impact on that young person, getting them there, reminding them sessions on, helping them out with kit. By the end of the programme, and for us this could be 16 months, the young person now is behaving the same as if the athlete was there, even though the athlete's not there. So we have to try and empower them to change their behaviour, break the poor behaviour, and create a new self. There you go. So I once got told you only remember 3 things from when people talk. So you've heard loads of things today. I'm going to try for you guys to remember 4 things, if I can remember them. The first one that we spoke about, what was it? The first one that we spoke about was understanding people's motivation, community-led, and I'll give you 3. A long-term approach to inactivity. There you go.